On behalf of the City Council, I want to thank you for attending our virtual information meeting on the Master Plan and Zoning Bylaw. One of my goals is to provide information to residents on important issues. I want to ensure you are informed. I also want to make sure you are aware of the ways you can participate and share your views. En 2022, nous aurons une conversation sur la façon dont la ville se développera au cours de la prochaine décennie et au-delà. À la suite de ces discussions publiques, la ville élaborera ce que l'on appelle un plan d'urbanisme. Il s'agit d'un document qui guidera ce conseil municipal et les conseils municipaux à venir. If I were going to produce a document that will guide this city council and future city councils, we need your help. Over the next 20 or so minutes, professionals will go into more detail about master plans and then explain how we will be consulting with you in 2022. So thank you for joining us. Et maintenant, allons-y.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending this information session on the master plan and zoning bylaw revision for Côte Saint-Luc. My name is Jacques Bénard, and I'm from the firm Hill & Knowlton Strategy. The city retained our services to help with the participatory process for this initiative. And I will be acting as moderator for tonight's session. So I'm here with my colleagues, Lauren and Elizabeth, sorry. And mon nom est Jacques Bénard, je serai l'animateur pour la séance de ce soir qui sera bilingue. Vous êtes nombreux à vous joindre ce soir avec nous et je vous en remercie. Les objectifs de la soirée ont été donnés par le maire Brownstein en introduction. The objective of the session is to provide you with information on the revision of the master plan and zoning bylaw on the pre-consultation activities in which you are invited to participate. Next slide, please. Now, why are we qualifying this as a pre-consultation? Simply because this is happening before the city actively starts working on the master plan. Your input will guide the city in the design of the new master plan. Next slide. Alors, trois présentatrices viendront vous parler ce soir. On a Tania Abramovich, qui est directrice générale, directrice générale associée pour stratégie urbaine Côte Saint-Luc. Nadia Richer, urbaniste de Fayet et Associés, et ma collègue Elisabeth Robertson, qui est directrice de compte participation publique chez HK Stratégie. Prochaine diapo. So here's the, next one, sorry. Thank you. So here's the agenda of this information session. We will start by three presentations, one on the master plan and zoning bylaws, another one on the city's vision and challenges for the master plan revision, and the third one on how to participate. This will be followed by a question period and a reminder of the next steps and a brief conclusion. So before we go further, I will ask my colleague Lauren, who is in charge of the technology for this meeting, to give you a quick briefing. Lauren.
Yes, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. As Jacques mentioned, we will be having a Q&A session, so that is our only form of engagement. Should you have any questions throughout the session, the box is already open. You will find the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and simply put in your questions, and we will try our best to get to as many questions throughout the session as we possibly can.
So next slide. So as Lauren mentioned, you'll be able to post your questions in writing during the presentation and during the question period. So you will have a little Q&A box like Lauren mentioned. We are asking you to keep your question obviously on the subjects covered in tonight's meeting and to remain respectful. Lorraine will be moderating the questions and post all the questions except those containing derogatory remarks, if there is any. Please make sure your questions are short and clear. That will help me for the moderation. Donc, on vous demande de faire porter vos questions sur le sujet de la soirée, de demeurer respectueux, bien entendu, dans vos propos et de faire en sorte que vos questions soient claires et courtes. Lors de la période de questions, je vais commencer par les questions écrites dans l'ordre qu'elles ont été posées. S'il reste du temps, et compte tenu de la quantité de personnes qu'il y a ce soir, ça me surprendrait, mais si jamais il reste du temps, nous prendrons quelques questions verbales à la fin. Donc, vous pouvez poser les questions dans la langue de votre choix et nous vous répondrons aux questions, dans la langue qu'elles ont été posées. During the question period, I will start with the questions that have been asked or posted in the Q&A box, and we'll address them to our presenters. If there are any unanswered questions, we will post the answers on the city's website. Only our presentators will be answering questions during this session. So I will distribute the question to those three presentators. The meeting will end at 9 p.m. Again, I encourage you to post your questions at all times, including during presentation. To avoid any distraction, the question will be posted for all to see during the question period. I remind you that this is an information session, and the goal is to make sure that all understand the ins and outs of a master plan and zoning bylaw and what this means for your city. As you will see in the presentation, you will have plenty of occasions during the next month to share your point of views, your concerns, your needs, and aspiration for this plan. Finally, this meeting is recorded and will be available on the city's website on the Engage page. We'll give you the address at the end. So if you know people who could not attend tonight's meeting, please tell them that they can view the entire session on the city's website. And if you like to see it again, you can actually do it on the city's website again. So let's start with the first presentation. The first presentation is by Nadia Richer, an urban planner from Fayet & Associés. Nadia will give you an overview of what is the master plan and zoning bylaw and what it is used for. Nadia, la parole est à toi.
Bonjour, hello. So as Jacques mentioned, today I'll be presenting an overview of the planning framework in Quebec and answer some key questions about master plans, zoning bylaws, and trends in urban planning. Next slide, please. First off, what is a master plan? So a master plan, or un plan d'urbanisme, is the main planning document at the city level that guides development. It's founded on a legal basis stemming from the Loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme, which provides rules relative to land use planning and development in the province of Quebec. From the provincial government stems the Plan métropolitain d'aménagement et de développement, which applies to the Greater Montreal area. This is followed by the lower level Schéma d'aménagement et de développement, which applies to the entire island of Montreal. Then each city has its own master plan and set of planning bylaws, one of which is the zoning bylaw. Next, please. So what is the master plan used for? Well, it sets out guidelines for a city's growth and establishes a vision for its development. This is done by defining a series of objectives and more specific criteria that help guide the city's development according to different themes. It's important to note that the content of the master plan isn't directly applicable to citizens, but its content is put into action through planning bylaws, which will be discussed later. Next slide, please. What does the master plan include? Well, it must determine the general aims of land development policy for the territory. In addition, the themes that are typically addressed in a master plan include things such as land use designations, meaning the types of activities that can happen in a given area, for example, housing, commercial uses, or parks. They also include land occupation density, which specifies the population in a given area, for example, the number of housing units per hectare. There's also building density, which specifies, among other things, the number of floors that are allowed to be built on a site or the amount of space the building takes up on a lot. And the master plan also identifies transportation networks, especially public transit, pedestrian, and cyclist networks that should be created or improved. Next, please. Other themes that are addressed in the master plan are natural and built heritage that need to be protected or enhanced. Examples of these include forest gardens and other natural areas, as well as buildings and monuments. The master plan can also include measures to improve the environment, such as the protection of wooded areas and wetlands, promoting biodiversity and the reduction of the heat island effect. For instance, to reduce the heat island effect, the master plan should include things like reducing the size of parking lots and increasing green space and tree cover to help lower the air temperature. The master plan can also include detailed planning areas identified for redevelopment or change in use to respond to development potential or specific characteristics. Next slide, please. So the master plan is also a reflection of the changing trends and needs of a community at a larger scale. In the context of climate change, the master plan actively seeks ways to plan a more livable, sustainable, and resilient city as a whole. Next slide, please. So transit-oriented development, or TOD, is an approach to urban development that prioritizes compact, walkable, pedestrian-oriented communities that are centered around transit stations. TOD areas are generally defined by a 10 to 15-minute walk radius surrounding a major transit station, and are usually part of a larger transit network that allows people to access different parts of the city and region. Now, it's worth mentioning that the Montreal metropolitan community identified 159 TOD areas in its Plan métropolitain d'aménagement et de développement. And the specific objective is to locate 60% of all new households within these TOD areas by 2031. To do this, the plan requires a certain minimum density threshold within the identified TOD areas. One of the core concepts of TOD is that there is a high enough density and mix of activities to support the central transit station. Next, please. The 15-minute city is another urban concept, and it prioritizes active mobility, diversity of uses, and the needs and well-being of people within their neighborhoods. Residents can easily get around on foot or bike, and local businesses meet their basic daily needs, which can be accessed within 15 minutes of where they live, as the name implies. Similar to TOD, the 15-minute city concept aims to promote sustainability and offer alternatives to the use of private vehicles. To achieve this, cities must integrate different services and amenities like schools, medical clinics, grocery stores, pharmacies, parks, and offices within the same neighborhood. High-quality streets and public spaces also encourage people to use more sustainable modes of transportation. Next slide, please. So far we've learned about the master plan and planning and development trends. Now we'll look at what a zoning bylaw is and how it differs from the master plan. So while the master plan sets out the general orientations for future land use, zoning bylaws put the plan into action and provide specific details for its application. Next, please. The master plan works at a larger scale and zoning bylaws are more detailed. So for example, if the master plan says that commercial uses are allowed in a certain area, the zoning bylaw specifies which type of activities are authorized, like offices, restaurants, and grocery stores, for example. A zoning bylaw divides the territory into zones which have specific requirements. It determines how land may or may not be used and where buildings and other structures can be located. It also specifies things such as building heights and densities, landscaping, fence heights, and parking requirements. Next slide, please. So why do we need to revise the master plan and zoning bylaw? Well, first off, development trends and the needs of cities are constantly changing, and the planning documents must therefore adapt and reflect the way the city has changed, the needs of current citizens, and while also planning for the future. The master plan and zoning bylaw must also conform to higher level plans as specified by the Loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme. Cities are required to update their master plan in compliance with the higher level schéma d'aménagement et de développement. For example, if the schéma identifies a TOD area around a new transit station, cities have to update their master plan to respond to the new density requirements within that specific area. And certain master plans and bylaws that are outdated no longer accurately reflect the planning orientations and priorities of the higher level plans. As such, these should be updated to reflect current issues like climate change, for example. Next slide, please. The process of revising a master plan and zoning bylaw has numerous implications for citizens. The benefits of revising these planning documents for citizens include things like improving sustainability and helping to combat climate change, for example, by increasing green space, ensuring better rainwater management, helping enhance the vibrancy of communities by encouraging different types of activities at all times of the day and week, and creating social spaces to promote the interaction of different age groups. For example, in terms of lifestyle, someone can travel on foot or by public transit, drop their kids off at school or daycare, and get to the office without needing to drive. Another benefit is encouraging a mix of housing types and affordability levels to respond to the different needs of the community. And there's also improved management of the tax base through the creation of new housing units and facilitating other development, which in turn generates more tax revenue. In the revision of a master plan, A stakeholder engagement process, such as a pre-consultation process, ensures that the master plan reflects the values of the citizens. This process can involve events that allow you to find out more about upcoming projects, ask specific questions, and express your concerns. The residents' inputs can help the city to make informed choices on the content of the master plan. Next, please. So there are legal obligations for the city that are the parameters under which the process follows. These include holding public consultations and conforming to higher level plans. So cities should periodically revise their master plan and zoning bylaw to reflect the current needs of the city's evolution. And as mentioned earlier, the Loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme requires that the master plan be revised following the amendment of the Schéma d'aménagement et de développement of the Montreal agglomeration. Next slide, please. To finish off my presentation, I'll now quickly discuss the process for the revision of the master plan and zoning bylaw. So first, the city will gather information about things such as population, economy, environment, and transportation. And at this time, they can also collect feedback from the public through a stakeholder engagement process, such as the pre-consultation process that's currently being conducted by the City of Côte Saint-Luc. Based on this information, they prepare a preliminary version of the master plan, which is then adopted by municipal council as a draft master plan. Then, a formal public consultation is held to hear the public's opinions on the proposed draft master plan. Council can then choose to adopt the master plan with or without changes. Before it comes into force, the Montreal agglomeration must confirm that the master plan conforms to the higher level plan. The zoning bylaw is adopted through its own process, which is similar to the one just described for the master plan, and it can also be adopted in parallel with the master plan adoption. The regular monitoring of the master plan and zoning bylaw allows the city to make sure that the plan's objectives are being met. And updates to the master plan and zoning bylaw take place when required, and then the process starts over. Next slide, please. To conclude, city planning in Quebec is guided by a legal framework involving different levels of government and municipal actors. Master plans set orientations to act as a general guide to the types of cities that we want. This is achieved through objectives related to sustainability, transportation, housing, land use, and the other themes mentioned earlier. The zoning bylaw acts as the tool that implements the master plan by being more specific. Citizens must be at the center of this process and are encouraged to be engaged throughout. Thank you. I'll now pass it over to Tanya, who will present the vision and challenges of the City of Côte Saint-Luc.
So next slide, please. Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, I'm here to present the city's vision and challenges. But before we get into that, I want to give you some history. So it has been a generation since the City of Côte Saint-Luc has actually made a master plan. Throughout its history, the city's growth has followed the urban planning trends of the time in which it was developed. The first ever master plan from 1954 has actually been lost. Next slide, please. And you can see this is from when Côte Saint-Luc was mostly fields. So this is the 1940s of Côte Saint-Luc with overlays of the streets you know. And as you can see, farm everywhere. But it's certainly defined how our city, like that master plan, that 1954 one we can find, defined how Côte Saint-Luc would be in the 1950s and 60s, which was a sleepy enclave suburbs, and they called it a dormitory suburb, designed around cars. Next slide, please. And you can see that already this is the model. By 1962, this is what it looked like. The entire western side of Côte Saint-Luc was built in that era when the city last experienced rapid population growth. The 1964 master plan has proven to be the most significant of all past plans. And I encourage you to look at all of them, and they're available on our website, on the Engage website, cotesaintluc.org/engage, so you can follow the city's vision over time and compare them. Apart from being incredibly forward thinking, I mean, they have plans for hovercrafts and helipads. It's a fabulous document. The 1964 document laid out plans for districts 7, 2, and 8. So basically east of Parkhaven and north of what's the Cavendish Underpass, which was only built in 1965. The master plan was only replaced in 1990 after 26 years. In the 90s, the north of Hampstead area was added to our territory as a compensation for Montreal for not opening up Kildare de Jean Talon. But despite that, our population declined in number. From that point, the landscape was mostly unchanged for the next 20 years. But as we know, in the last 5 years or so, we've started really to experience growth again. It's time for a new master plan to not only direct that growth and redevelopment, but also to bring Côte Saint-Luc into the 21st century. The current master plan in effect, you can go to the next slide. It just shows you the 1970s and how it's grown up. Next slide. So the current master plan in effect is from the merger years with Montreal when we were part of the borough of Côte Saint-Luc, Hampstead, and Mount West. Drafted almost 20 years ago, it is very out of date. It was printed in 2004 when we weren't even an independent city. The population at the time was also slow and stable, growing only by 1,440 people in the 20 years between 1996 and 2006. Between 2011 and 2016, the population increased by a mere 127 people. So compare this with the most recent from 2016 to 2021, the population shot up to almost 35,000 people, an increase of almost 2,500 people just in the last 5 years. We are clearly in a new area of significant population growth, and we need a new master plan to reflect that. The challenges that we face in society today, like climate change, pandemic recovery, an entirely new retail landscape, are not reflected in the current plan, nor are the substantial changes in mobility generally. So things like the rise of electric vehicles, ride share, bike share, micromobility, none of those are in the previous plan. Major infrastructure changes on the island of Montreal, like the REM, the REV, or the future Cavendish extension, are also absent. The Namur de la Savane area, of which we are part, both in the De Carry Square area and also the Quartier Cavendish area, they weren't even built up, let alone planned at the time of our current plan. So including the Triangle, Royal Mount, Cité Midtown, the Westbury, and what will be the Hippodrome development. So there's been a whole lot of movement there. They're just gone. Perhaps the most importantly, none of our previous versions of master plans were created consulting residents. This time, we want to do things differently and get your input before the plan is drafted. So we want to kick off this process, this consultation process, or pre-consultation process, as we're calling it, with a vision of what Côte Saint-Luc can be to spark your thinking and inspire you for the next 20 years. So what is our vision? We want to make Côte Saint-Luc a more connected, walkable, age-friendly, and sustainable city where residents can get services closer to their homes and gain access to rapid public transit and more mobility and housing options. Et je vais le répéter en français. Nous voulons que Côte Saint-Luc soit une ville plus connectée, marchable, conviviale pour les personnes de tous les âges et plus durable, où les résidents peuvent obtenir des services de proximité et ont accès à un transport en commun rapide avec plusieurs options de mobilité et de logement. So I'm going to break that vision down a little bit because that's like a lot of commas and a lot of words. So the first point, and one of the things that is most important for the future of Côte Saint-Luc, is the revitalization and transformation of the 3 big commercial centers on our territory. That is, a new slide please, Quartier Cavendish, De Carry Square, and the Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center. We don't really have much undeveloped land left in Côte Saint-Luc, and so they are the largest areas for potential redevelopment. The city's vision is to transform them into dynamic, dense, mixed commercial, residential, office, and community hubs where people can live, work, and play. We want these developments to be walkable and comfortable and have social places for people to gather. Right now, shopping malls are in decline and have been for years. They are of a past era. They no longer fulfill their purpose as service and community hubs like they once did. People's shopping habits have also changed, as we know. More people shop online now, and there's a lot more competition than ever before. The malls are simply not getting enough business, and they are no longer commercially sustainable. From an environmental point of view, they generate a huge amount of heat as they're surrounded by an ocean of asphalt surface parking. When you look at a heat island map, which I do actually often, they are dark red spots on those maps. We can see the city in these areas of the city filled with greenery and sustainable and beautiful architecture and quality neighborhood design that makes you want to walk through it. The second part of our vision is also for the city to become more connected and increase mobility options. Côte Saint-Luc is enclaved. It always has been. We have rail yards surrounding us on the western, northern, and eastern borders. And if that wasn't enough, we also have a giant train line diagonally crossing the entire city. Even the north of Hampstead area has train tracks to the north and the Carry Expressway to the east. We want to improve access to other sectors in other cities, as with the Cavendish extension, for example, But we also want to improve access within Côte Saint-Luc itself to overcome some of the barriers posed by train tracks. We'd like to create the transit-oriented developments, TODs, that were discussed in the previous presentation. Right now, Côte Saint-Lucers have little choice but to get into their cars and sit in traffic to basically get anywhere. So the third part of our vision is to increase housing availability and affordability by diversifying housing options. This doesn't just mean adding new buildings or housing types, although yes, that, but also making it possible to change existing ones to accommodate other generations, for example. We want our residents to be able to stay in their community as they get older, and we want young adults to be able to build their lives here. Very importantly, we also need to increase the tax base, by which I mean the number of households paying taxes and not the tax rate, just to clarify that point and not scare anybody. To do that, we need more higher density buildings, so we have more people paying municipal taxes on a more efficient infrastructure system. We need that new tax revenue to be able to maintain and improve our existing infrastructure, including roads and sidewalks, in addition to sewer and stormwater pipes and the replacement of lead pipes. At the rate we are able to repair these now, it will take decades to do the entire city. Increasing the tax base will also ensure the city's financial sustainability as well and reduce the city's long-term debt, allow us to maintain a quality of services we offer and keep them affordable for all residents for many years to come. So in terms of timeline, the changes needed to realize this vision will not happen overnight. Urban development is a slow and long-range process. The preliminary consultations on the master plan that we're in now will be going into the fall of this year. With results of these consultations, we will produce a draft master plan and zoning bylaw revision. Once complete, they will have to go through the official regulatory process and consultations, which take place in 2023. After that process is complete and any new development project, big, small, developer would have to submit formal plans and drawings first to our public advisory committee and then to council and potentially other committees such as the demolition committee. Then permits would have to be obtained for demolition and construction. So more or less, the earliest any shovel would be in the ground for, say, one of the mall developments would be the end of 2024. But a transformation across the whole city will take many, many years and is much more incremental. So we cannot attain our vision without a bullet plan, of course, but we know that achieving it is not without its challenges. To begin with, in a city our size, there are many needs to address, some of which are competing. There is only so much space, and many people think Côte Saint-Luc is just fine as it is, thank you very much. People are also used to driving everywhere, and they also hate sitting in traffic. Transit-oriented developments support the kind of investment in rapid transit infrastructure we need to get people out of Côte Saint-Luc, but we don't fully control that. So there's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. No development, no transit, but no transit, no development in the same way. A lot of the benefits to residents are also not immediate because this process is so slow. So why we're consulting you now, with a new master plan and zoning bylaw in place, the city will have an updated, modern roadmap for future development to follow that residents will have had a hand in creating. We need a plan for the next 20 years. We're doing these preliminary consultations this year because we think it's critical for our residents to react to our vision and to share their own aspirations for the future of Côte Saint-Luc so we can incorporate their feedback into the draft master plan. We want to know where our residents stand, what they are thinking about before decisions are made. I can't emphasize that word enough, before. It's italic and I want to make it bold and giant and flashing also. Now we know that in a city of 35,000 people, there will be diversity of points of view and no monolithic orientations, but we are certain that we have a lot to learn from our residents. The results of these consultations will inform our thinking when we start drafting the new master plan. So I just want to pass it on to Elizabeth, who will actually talk about this process. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Tanya. Let's just take a look at that picture. Can you go back one slide? It's such a lovely picture of Côte Saint-Luc. I just like the horizon there. Okay, thank you, Lauren. You can go to the next part. Alors, comment participer? Comment vous, les citoyens de Côte Saint-Luc, pouvez participer à ce processus? We've planned a series of consultation activities that will give you the opportunity to, well, many opportunities actually, to gather information and to share your ideas. Next slide, please. So here you have all the different elements of the pre-consultation process. So the very first step to the left is this meeting that you're attending right now, a general information session on the master plan and the zoning bylaw revision, as well as the whole process of how it's going to function. The next meeting after this one will take place on September 13th. And we didn't want to hold any events during the summer. That's why there's such a gap, because we assume a lot of people will be away on vacation. So September 13th, we'll come back rested and refreshed for another information session. The format then will be similar to this one. That is, I'll start with presentations, followed by a question and answer session. It'll be in a webinar format on Zoom, but the topic will be different. So instead of speaking about the master plan generally, we'll be focusing specifically on the shopping center sites and the redevelopment of those sites. At that meeting, at that second information session, we'll be launching an online survey. You can see the little rectangle in dark green on the bottom of the screen. So this online survey is really to gather your feedback about the redevelopment ideas for the shopping centers, but also just for anything related to the master plan. And this online survey will stay open until October 31st. Now, the Sunday right after the information session, so the September the 18th, we'll be holding a porte ouverte, une journée porte ouverte, an open house at City Hall. And once again, that's where you can meet people and find out more and share your ideas about everything that's going on. A little over a month later, on October 26th, there'll be an informal hearing where interested citizens and interesting groups as well can present briefs to the city. And we've also set aside time in the second to last square, as you can see, for other consultation activities. These activities, will determine them according to the feedback that we receive from you in the other activities. So the open house, the online survey, and the questions that we receive at the information center, and the briefs too. So we'll see what themes are of particular concern to you and whether certain aspects need more attention, and then we'll figure out what activities to set up accordingly. Then we're going to compile and analyze and gather all that feedback throughout the process that we gathered throughout the process, and prepare a report which will be released publicly in December, and it'll be posted on the city website, so you'll all be able to have a look at what's inside. I'd like to give you a bit more information on those three middle activities. So the information session, the open house, and the public hearing. So Lauren, if you could go to the next slide, please. So we'll start with the information session. So this is the one that focuses specifically on the shopping center sites. So like I said, it'll be set up like this meeting, presentations followed by a Q&A session. So we'll have our urban planner, Nadia, will be back to talk about the characteristics of each site. And then the city will talk about the development potential of the sites. The site owners will be there as well to talk about their preliminary ideas for each site. And as I said, we'll launch the online survey as well as an information document that will have information that was presented at this meeting, but also a little bit more detail about the whole redevelopment of the shopping center and the potential for that. Next slide, please. So then we come to the open house, which is just a few days later. Oh, and also if you miss that information session, or you already know you can't make it on September 13th, that's okay. Just like this meeting, it'll be recorded and posted on the website. So the open house, that's going to be rain or shine at City Hall on the 18th of September. And that's your chance to come and meet and talk to elected officials, city professionals, urban planners, urban designers. The shopping site owners will be there as well. And they'll be there to answer your questions. Of course, you'll also get to talk to your fellow citizens. So it'd be nice to see you there. Next slide, please. And finally, at the public hearing, you'll have a chance to give your feedback, as I said, in the online survey. However, if you have more to say, in October, you'll also have the opportunity to prepare a short brief and present it in person, or as I said, in a group as well to the city. So this is October 26th, and once again, it will be at City Hall. Next slide, please. So throughout the process, we'll be posting the next steps, the times and places of meetings and the open house on the website. So at cotesaintluc.org, contribuer, cotesaintluc.org/engage. This is really your one-stop shopping for everything related to this process. And it's content that will evolve along with the process. So for example, we're going to post the recording of this meeting so people who weren't able to attend can watch it. It's also where you'll be able to access the survey when it comes out, as well as the information document about the shopping center sites. And you can already find background information there, like the previous master plans that Tanya referred to in her presentation. I'm curious about the hovercraft reference myself. So if ever you have any questions or anything, try to see if you can find the answers. You'll probably find the answers at the website cotesaintluc.org/engage. Next slide, please. And now I'll hand it over to Jacques to lead us through the question and answer period. Jacques.
Alors, merci à vous trois. Merci aux trois présentatrices pour ces présentations. Nous sommes donc maintenant rendus à la période de questions où on va commencer avec les questions écrites. On en a quelques-unes. Je vais demander tout de suite à Lauren d'afficher les questions que nous avons reçues. So, Lauren, if you can post all the questions we received. You can still write some more questions if you feel like asking questions about what was presented. Obviously, we are asking you to ask questions related to tonight's agenda. Response, as I said a bit earlier, responses to unanswered question will be posted on the city's Engage website. Elizabeth just showed you the address. If needed, I will take the liberty to reframe some questions, and if actually some are comments, because as mentioned, it's a question period, I will translate them into questions for our panelists here. So thank you very much. So let's look at the questions that we have already. We have 13. So please continue writing your questions. We'll answer your questions in the order that they were posted. So la première est assez simple. Can you please answer questions in both languages? Certainement, on peut répondre aux questions en français et en anglais. Je ferai peut-être une petite traduction, so sometimes I'll make a quick translation to make sure that everybody understands the question and the answer. Donc, on va commencer par Laurent Fortier. Alors, Laurent Fortier nous pose la question, comment la Ville de Côte Saint-Luc va-t-elle s'assurer que son développement futur respecte les objectifs identifiés dans le PMAD? Alors, c'est un concept qu'a présenté Nadia un peu plus tôt, donc ce plan métropolitain d'aménagement et de développement, qui, entre autres, vise à encourager la densification et le transport en commun. So very quickly, how the City of Côte Saint-Luc will make sure that the development respects the objective of this metropolitan plan, and which has encourage densification, and the public transit. Nadia, si on regarde comment on s'assure que ce type d'objectif est respecté?
Oui, de façon générale, le moyen d'assurer que les orientations du PMAD en termes de densification et d'accès au transport en commun sont rencontrées. Une des choses, c'est de concentrer la densité et d'exiger une mixité d'usage autour des stations de transport en commun existants, mais aussi projetées ou qui pourraient possiblement avoir dans le futur. Parce que comme Tania expliquait, c'est comme un chicken and egg situation où ça prend du transport en commun pour avoir plus de densité, mais ça prend de la densité aussi pour justifier le transport en commun. Donc ça, par le plan d'urbanisme et les règlements d'urbanisme comme le règlement de zonage, on peut vraiment venir autoriser et exiger aussi là, une mixité, avoir des commerces, différents types d'usages avec le résidentiel et avoir des densités minimales en termes de superficie de plancher par superficie du site ou le nombre de logements. Et puis, augmenter la densité, ça aide, c'est ça, à la ville de justifier, ou en anglais, advocate for transit stations by bringing the critical mass. Je dirais aussi de créer des communautés qui sont plus propices à la marche et walkable communities, en améliorant les espaces publics et les rues pour rendre les espaces plus confortables pour les piétons qui vont...
Je vais t'arrêter tout de suite, Nadia, parce que c'est une longue réponse.
C'est correct, j'avais fini.
je vais donc te demander peut-être de résumer en quelques mots, mais surtout, je pense la question, en fait, si je ne me trompe pas, on comprend, we understand that the urban plan is the tool to make sure that these objectives that are in the and sort of the metropolitan plan are actually put in place in the city. But I understand the question differently. I understand that what organization can forces the City of Côte Saint-Luc to respect those? Is there any mechanism? Is there any directives or like other plans that actually that make sure that the city will respect these objectives?
Yes, well, the master plan will have to meet density thresholds and also respect the land use designations that are in the schéma d'aménagement, which is the plan that's higher than the master plan but lower than the PMAD. So when the master plan gets approved, it has to conform to the schéma. So that includes the density thresholds and the uses.
OK, merci. Yeah. Alors donc, c'est à travers l'approbation du plan par la communauté métropolitaine parce que le plan va être donc adopté. Le plan doit donc être validé par les instances supérieures, si je comprends bien. Merci beaucoup. Alors, M. Fortier, c'était pour votre question. Monsieur ou Madame Nathan, what is the projected period on which the master plan will be prepared? Also, the duration of the preparation of this master plan. Tanya.
So
how many years?
I understood the question to mean, how long are we projecting into the future with this master plan? So
yes, well, let's answer both then. First one, the projection, I think you said something about 20 years. First thing,
well,
just confirm that. Yes.
Technically, it's supposed to be 10, but realistically, probably more like 20. But
okay.
50, I mean, we're thinking 50 years, but we could not possibly pretend in 2022 to say what's going to be good for 50 years from now. So it's really, I'm thinking 10 years, 10 to 20, let's call it.
Good. And how about the other question, which is, how long is it going to take to prepare that plan?
Well, this year is all about the pre-consultation process. We have to still hire the consultants to draft the master plan, give them time to do it. So there should be a draft in 2023, the end of 2023, fall maybe, but we'll see how it goes. But we're aiming for 2023 at the very least.
Très bien. Donc, une période d'à peu près 1 à 2 ans. Donc, pour répondre à la première question, la projection, donc la vision de ce plan est à long terme, mais les objectifs sont à un peu plus court terme, c'est-à-dire 10 à 20 ans de façon plus réaliste. Wayne Hodgkin has 2 questions. Actually, the first one is a bit of a comment. So, Westminster Street, 1 block north of Côte Saint-Luc, Avenue narrows and bends going under the railway track. I believe it is important for safety to always have clearly marked lanes, but this is not the case. So this is a specific aspect of the in the city. Going a bit, is the master plan takes in consideration safety issues? Is this something that you will find in a master plan? Considerations there? Any consideration on safety? Maybe I'll start with Nadia and Tanya after this one. Nadia? Do we have safety consideration when we are planning a master plan?
Yeah, we definitely do. Can you be more specific in terms of which kind of safety?
A general safety regarding streets, traffic. Is this something that we look at in the master plan? Or is it something more detailed that really is more sort of a management issue?
I think it can be looked at, but it's not one of the requirements of the Loi sur l'aménagement. So it's not a required content as far as I understand. But it definitely would be higher level. So the master plan won't get into the details of like what's required for each specific area, you know, directly in terms of safety, but it really depends on each master plan. But I think that it could be addressed, but it would have to be at a higher level.
Tanya, on this?
So I'll just answer his direct question, which is, we have water-based paint that we're obliged to use by the MDDEP. We are in the current process of, I believe our line painting contract is underway, so they will be painting the lines. It's not really master plan material, but I'll answer your question anyway. And we would also, if we're talking about safety of roads, just to say we would have a street design guideline that would show how the best and safest way for roads to be configured. We're actually looking at drafting one of those 2023 or 2024. So that would address the which lines are painted type of thing or intersection design, but it's not master plan. In terms of the noisy gas powered leaf blowers, this is definitely not master plan material. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the city council is passing something on this issue on Monday night. I don't want to speak out of turn because I honestly can't remember, but this is not master plan stuff.
No, is it bylaw though? Do you have any?
It's the nuisance bylaw.
Nuisance bylaw, so it's unrelated to the planning bylaws. Thank you very much. So Harold Forrester has questions regarding the future Cavendish extension. So as the city, or will the city encourage traffic going to and coming from the future Cavendish extension to reach and use alternate north-south routes instead of bunching up on Cavendish? So is this something that you will be looking in the master plan, Tanya?
In the master plan directly, well, we have to parse this out because the city is involved in so many Cavendish extension discussions on technical levels, political levels, and comité directeur steering committee levels. We do not want Côte Saint-Luc to become, first of all, to carry two, right? So the City of Côte Saint-Luc will not allow truck traffic through Côte Saint-Luc, for one thing. We're in discussions with Montreal about the actual look and configurations, how many lanes. So, I mean, we just had a consultation with the BAP, the Bureau d'Audience Publique Environnementale, of which Côte Saint-Luc residents were the most avid participants. 90% of the people who responded were Côte Saint-Luc residents. So this whole issue of Cavendish extension, it's going to be in the master plan in terms of the concept of it, but the actual street cuts and the width, we're working on that angle on all the committees and all the other levels that we're involved in, particularly as we don't control it.
Thank you. Mr. or Mrs. Nathan has another question. It will be good to add, or it's actually a recommendation, to add one more underpass between Cavendish and Westminster near Côte Saint-Luc Road Mall. So maybe a more general question regarding master plans. Are these kind of connections between, you talked about opening Côte Saint-Luc to the areas around. What are these aspects, the traffic, the connections, is this something that's looked at in the master plan? And is there any specific things you have in mind for Côte Saint-Luc?
So in terms of connecting links over trains, yes, this would be the stuff in master plans for sure. Certainly the way that we're thinking of them, they are not for cars though. So the internal ones, right? The ones that connect to other cities would be, but the ones that would be internal would be, active transit, pedestrian, and biking. One example that we would love to achieve, and we absolutely want to put it in, is, for example, between Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center and, like, say, Park Haven on the other side, to overcome the barrier of those train tracks. That would be one example of something we'd be looking at, because right now that track, which is a main line, it totally cleaves the city in two. So that's one example of it. We just want to be able to link north and south Côte Saint-Luc.
Thank you. André Zoldman is asking, what happens if the Côte Saint-Luc master plan does not match or find favor with the city of Montreal? This goes to Nadia. So what if they don't agree, right? What happens?
Well, they're separate jurisdictions. They don't have to match. They both, however, so the City of Montreal's master plan and Côte Saint-Luc both have to respect the higher level plans. However, to make a good master plan, you do need to work with the neighboring communities and try and come up with a vision that's complementary, so that you have a realistic master plan that works.
Good. Merci. Prochaine question. We need to use a space for parks so people can connect to nature. We also need to make sure that we see the stars at night. So interesting question. So parks are part of master plans also. Is there any sustainable development initiatives that are part of master plans? Let's start with this one about parks. Is this something that we plan in master plans? Nadia.
Can I answer this one?
Yes.
And
so from a public spaces point of view, and as the main public spaces person in Côte Saint-Luc, parks and public spaces are a huge priority for the city. And whatever we would develop would absolutely have green spaces incorporated. We're also looking at preserving certain areas of Côte Saint-Luc as undevelopable land, so protecting natural environments and adding green sustainability. Like this is where our plan has to go. It's not even by choice anymore, it's by necessity. In terms of seeing the stars at night, the way you're going to achieve that is by reducing pollution and light pollution also, and that is the reduction of cars. So if we achieve that, you may see a few more stars, though realistically we are in the city. So
is this an objective that you can find in a master plan in general, Nadia? Are cities looking at this as and include that in their planning process, the considerations of light?
The consideration of
light pollution, for example? Or is it something that's separate from master plans?
It's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised if there was something in some master plans. I know that it's definitely a big part of like LEED certification to reduce uplighting. I would say yes. Again, it's not a required content from the act, the provincial act. However, anything touching sustainability, sustainable development is increasingly becoming key to master planning and content in the master plan. So, and parks and green networks are absolutely part of the master plans, and they always have even a plan showing where the existing ones are and where any future parks or like other green spaces would be located.
So these are elements where people in the consultation will be able to make suggestions also. Yep. Next question is likely for you, Tanya. What is happening with Meadowbrook Golf Course? And will this be included in the plan? So any news on the Meadowbrook Golf Course, Tanya?
So the city is in an ongoing litigation with the owners, Groupe Pacifique. There is movement in the sense that all sorts of things are happening at the CMM level, and there's potential changes in the provincial expropriation law. There's a whole bunch of parts that are moving. Will it be included? Our position on the Meadowbrook Golf Course has been unchanged for many, many years, which is we wanted to stay recreation green. We still hold the position of no development. That is unchanged.
And this is reflected in the master plan, Tanya?
Yes.
Thank you. Question by Debbie. Will the strip malls be included in the plan? So I think we've heard that some of the big malls will be included. Do we have other strip malls that we're looking at in the city for this master plan, Tanya?
Well, in the sense that the entire city is being looked at for the master plan, right? So are the strip malls included in that we anticipate a project from them? I would say that the city is looking at every single area for what could be in 10, 20 years. There's no project on the table or owners have not approached us about those at this time, but every single piece of our territory is fodder for the master plan, as it were.
Thanks. Next question from Terence is asking if lobbying and cooperating with the City of Montreal is part of this master plan process. So as an example, if we want a metro station, a rapid or fast bus lanes. So what happens when in the master plan? Do you actually take into account, you know, the intentions of the City of Montreal or the STM, or do you actually propose that there is a either a rapid bus lane or metro station? How does that work? Maybe I'll go to Nadia first regarding what's the process of, you know, the planning process integrates traffic and also more specifically in this case, public transit.
Yeah, so the master plan is there to establish a vision for where the city wants to go. And so it can definitely include transit stations that don't already exist, or like reserved bus lanes that don't already exist, as you know, a starting point. And the lobbying can be done you know, during the elaboration of the master plan. It can also be done after, once it's been shown to the public and the information is down on paper. So collaboration though with the STM and the ARTM is definitely needed in order to make these things come to light. Yeah.
Thank you. Tanya, any ambitions for public transit in your master plan or the city's vision?
Endless ones. Actually, we've made presentations of briefs to the ARTM. We talk to them all the time. Certainly, I don't think a metro station is realistic, but we are absolutely fighting for rapid transit to metros. That is one of our objectives. It's one of the things that if you're going to have what's called a modal transfer, if you're trying to get anybody out of a car, they have to have a fast, convenient way to get to a metro in order to get to where they want to go. So we are already and have been for many years lobbying for better transit in Côte Saint-Luc, easier to access and faster.
Donc, merci beaucoup. La réponse, Terence, c'est oui, effectivement, la ville fait du lobbying auprès des instances pour obtenir des services de public transit, de transport en commun. Louise Woolman, are the shopping centers owners all on board with changes? What happens with the Carry Square? So let's start with the first one. Are you in discussion with shopping center owners? Do they know the vision of the city? Do they have?
Of the three malls,
yes,
all three of the shopping centers, Kelsey Cavendish, to Carry Square, and Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center, they want changes, right? It's their businesses that are sort of the malls are dying, and they want to have, I'm going to say, better value of the land and the space. So yes, they are very much desiring this. They are aware of the city vision. Yes.
So they also desire some change on their property. Okay,
and in terms of Carry Square, most of it is in Côte Saint-Luc. There's a tiny little piece where was the Pizza Hut that is now Pizza Pita that isn't, but they still own the land, whether there's a bit in Côte-des-Neiges and DG or not. So if they have a proposal, they have to do what they do with Côte Saint-Luc, and then they would have to do what they need to do with Côte-des-Neiges and DG.
Thank you. So Nathan is saying that this planning seems to be very much top-down process. Planners have a vision, and this process is how to make it work. Sustainability, transit, etc., seems to be axiomatic goals. So how open are we, Tanya, to receive comments? How is the public input will influence this plan that doesn't exist right now, which is, as we said, we're at the stage where the information gathering will feed into the design of the plan, but is everything cooked, Tanya?
So
to be clear,
no, if it was cooked, we wouldn't have bothered with this entire consultation process this year, right? I mean, officially, if we were just going to hand you something, we would have drafted it and then done the official consultations for that. So I would say planners have a vision. It's the city that has the vision, which includes our urban planning department, but we had to put something forward just as a point de départ, as it were. Certainly, we do need to increase the tax base. We need to respond to climate change. We certain things we can function in a certain way, and so we have to modify them. But what that actually looks like in the end, nothing is set in stone. That's the whole point of this year. If there's an orientation, the era of detached suburban house is not the future. That is for sure. But what that future is as of yet to be determined. We'll see at the end of this process.
Thank you, Tania. Another question from Andre Zoldan, sorry. I'll ask first, Nadia. You mentioned that the city has, there's a requirement that the city consults the population on the plan. What format does it take? Because the question is, will there be a citywide referendum on the final plan? So what's the requirement in the law with respect to consultation when the plan is submitted to the population?
Yeah, so the requirement is to hold a public consultation meeting where citizens can express their opinions and be heard, and then the master plan can be adopted with changes based on the comments and the opinions that they receive from the population. They don't have to make all the changes that are requested. They take it into consideration, but it's not a requirement to make those changes. And the master plan, like I mentioned earlier, it is subject to an approval from the Montreal agglomeration. So once the bylaw is done, then it gets sent to the agglomeration, and then they receive a certificate of conformity. So yeah, the public consultation is required, and it happens before the final adoption.
Okay, Tanya, will there be a referendum to respond clearly to the question that was asked on the final plan?
Like a rezoning, if there's a certain number of signatures and there's a threshold, and if it crosses the threshold, then yes, there would be one.
Thank you. A question from Stacy is asking, before the next webinar, webinar is really the next one, as Elizabeth mentioned, will be on shopping center sites. So Stacy is asking if it's possible to see the communication or correspondence from the shopping center owners to Côte Saint-Luc before this webinar. So is there any communication between the shopping center owners and the city, and can the residents see that correspondence? Tanya.
Well, they would have to make an access to information request for it, like any other request for documents.
Okay. That's the answer. Laurence Popov, please remember that Cavendish Mall is essential for seniors who don't have a car, since it's in walking distance for many of us. The mall is not outmoded. What do you want to do with it, So maybe let's go back to your kind of vision for the malls, and more specifically for Cavendish Mall. Is the idea of transforming the whole area? Will it be still accessible for seniors? Like, I understand that Lawrence is concerned about this. Will it be pedestrian friendly? Tanya? So,
first of all, we are highly aware of the role that the Cavendish Mall plays for a certain category of seniors. The City of Côte Saint-Luc is so concerned about the ability of people to age in place. I mean, we have a whole living lab project about this, which is exploring how to maximize, I want to say, later life, right? Because one of the problems we see in Côte Saint-Luc is that if you have no lift, you have no life. And one of the reasons we want to make these areas much more walkable, much more friendly for people, because the loss of independence on seniors and the need for social connection is something that we're trying to foster and have grow. It's not something we want to take away at all. And so I just want to make all residents very clear, like when we talk about age-friendly city, it's not just for seniors, because generally what's good for an 80-year-old is good for everybody, right? Wider sidewalks, awnings, dealing with weather, having places to stay and gather. So making it that you can walk downstairs and have services. These are all things that we would never take away. from our seniors or our residents, ever. We are highly cognizant and very careful about that.
Thank you. Another question regarding, again, the process of the zoning change for shopping malls. Question from Harry, asking if there will be, if it could be submitted to a vote, a district vote at the lower, so smaller scale than the whole city. Is this something that is part of the process, Tanya?
The referendum would be citywide, for sure, because the master plan applies to the entire city. The zoning bylaw would apply to the entire city. So it's not district specific, it's city specific.
Thank you. Question about the demolition of the Cavendish Mall. I think first, is there a plan to demolish the Cavendish Mall, or is this part of the redevelopment that you envision? And the question is, how could it be accomplished? I'm not too exactly sure what that means, but let's say, what would be required in terms, or do the change that are envisioned would require some demolition, either total or partial, from your understanding, Tanya? Or
So
could it include parts of the existing?
So if the developers said, we want to build a whole new mall, they would have to demolish, right? So they'd have to present, before they could even ask for a demolition permit, they have to present a whole plan to the PAC, Planning Advisory Committee, that would then have to be approved at council also. So first they would need an approved project. That's the first step before a wrecking ball comes. And then they would have to go through the demolition committee, and then they would have to get a permit with all the parameters of the permit, you know, how you do the construction, where your park, like all that stuff. And then they would do it. And judging by the last mall demolition, right, because half of the Cavendish Mall was already demolished, the actual wrecking ball process did not take that much time. But honestly, from a construction point of view, depending on what would go up, it's very hard for me to answer that question.
Thank you. Jeffrey is asking if there will be a baseline study part of this information gathering process. So meaning looking at demographics, land use, retail services, to make sure that there's, you know, that the plan actually is looking at the gaps between the existing situation and what we want to achieve. Tanya, or maybe not? Yes. Okay. What kind of studies?
Well, this year is about consultation, but it's also, first of all, the people who are drafting the master plan also have to do this homework. Every week I eagerly check the StatCan website to observe the demographics to see where Côte Saint-Luc has gone and where it looks like it's going. We've already had, let's say, the McGill students analyze our housing for gaps in our housing. We're going to have focus groups talking that are subject specific about housing, about mobility, about home-based businesses, about business in general. So all of these things, the gaps in let's say service or land use or housing types, or all of these things we're looking at, both in terms of best practice, in terms of experts, in terms of, and also listening to people and what they're having issues with, or like, why can't Côte Saint-Luc have a all of those things, all of that. Yes.
Thank you. Next two questions about the CP rail yards. So they're both, they're from Joseph Robinson and Robert Limon. So is the process assumed that the CP yards are going to stay as they are, or will it be part of the planning process to imagine what they could be, or how can they change? Tanya.
From all our conversations with CP, they are enlarging their operations. They are in no way shrinking them at this time. So if we're on a 10-year horizon, much as I would love them to move, and I would, it's not realistic to have them to plan as if they're going to, because they're not in this timeline, not at all, much as I would love them to.
Said is asking a very wide question. What changes to zoning do you expect to be part of the master plan? So does the master plan, first there is a master plan and the zoning bylaw, maybe make a difference between both of them. What are the big changes that are expecting in terms of zoning through this master plan, this planning process, Tanya?
So I would say the biggest change in a general kind of way is we're going for, I don't know what the word is in English, but mixité. So Côte Saint-Luc was based around separate zoning. So you have residential here and this kind of housing type here, and then you have this there. One of the things we're trying to do is to mix it up a bit and not have just one type of thing, because it forces people to get into their cars and not be able to walk to anything. So the 15-minute city concept, which is very trendy at the world at the moment that Nadia referred to, is actually a good one. And it actually harkens back to what is traditional neighborhood design. So people want to be able to go out and get an ice cream with their kids without having to get into a car. So mixed use is one of the major things. Mixed use and mobility, I would say, are the two, and connectivity. We really need those things in Côte Saint-Luc. So those are the three big ones.
Thank you, Tanya. I've got quite a number of questions before before the end of the meeting. So I'll skip some of the comments that obviously we're actually taking into account. But we'll go to the next question is from Kim, who was asking how about making the city more accessible for, I lost the question, for those with a disability. So is there any elements in that? You've talked about mobility. What about people with disability, Tanya?
So absolutely. I am also the person who is working on the action plan for the disabled in the city of Côte Saint-Luc. And this plan that we're looking at, which is going to be produced in the next 2 months, if all goes well, we are incredibly cognizant of the need. When I like age friendly, it's also people friendly, right? So making it easy for people, we want to add audible signals at our major intersections. We want to make sure that there's textured curb cuts so that people can cross the street who have reduced visibility, I'm losing my brain here, but so that who have reduced vision. We want to make sure that things are, wheelchair accessibility is a minimum standard in the world now. It is 2022. So yes, we have talked about it. We are making action plans. We are adding more. We just did a study on the accessibility of City Hall and the library, for example. So, and we've done studies on our other buildings. So yes, in a short answer.
Is it part of the vision? This is a question or comment from Terence, to connect the Montreal bike lanes, like you're talking about connection, mobility. Is the biking network part of this, and is the connection with the cities, the environment around, part of this vision, or your intentions, Tanya?
Absolutely. A bike network that just exists to go around Côte Saint-Luc is not useful if it is not connected to those of Montreal. So yes, in a short answer.
Thank you. On va passer à une question d'Isabelle Letourneau qui nous demande si les toitures des édifices commerciaux vont pouvoir être des toits verts. Est-ce que c'est quelque chose que vous pouvez exiger dans la réglementation? Est-ce que c'est quelque chose que vous pouvez prévoir, ce type de toit vert? So can the commercial buildings be required to have green roofs? Tanya, I think it's
Nous avons déjà
again.
dans notre règlement, si la pente est d'une certaine, je pense que c'est 16,2 degrés, ils sont d'abord obligés d'avoir un toit blanc et peuvent avoir un toit vert comme tel, mais c'est sûr que dans nos discussions avec n'importe quel promoteur qui veut bâtir un édifice, que si on veut que ça soit plus durable, d'un sens, soit pour le recyclage de l'eau ou de n'importe quelle initiative verte, disons, c'est sûr que c'est dans les discussions avec les promoteurs.
Très bien. Je comprends que c'est donc, ça fait l'objet de négociations avec les promoteurs lorsqu'ils présentent un projet.
Oui. C'est déjà dans notre règlement. Ça existe déjà dans un de nos règlements.
OK. On a parlé des toits blancs ou des toits verts? Ici, la question était vraiment spécifiquement sur les toits verts. Donc, est-ce que ça fait partie aussi du règlement, les toits verts?
L'obligation est pour toit blanc, mais ils peuvent utiliser un toit vert aussi.
Très bien. Merci beaucoup. Rhonda, is there any interface and vision with city with respect to various master plan and zoning perfection, including Meadowbrook? So peut-être une autre question qui touche le CP. Donc, I guess it's the different railroads that are surrounding. Is there any initiative or any specific objective to deal with the connections between, and the interconnections with regards to the CP lanes?
So
if I understand well the question.
The big discussion is for the Cavendish extension, which goes through CP. We don't really have CN yards. We have a tiny little squeaky part of CN, but it's really CP, and the Cavendish extension goes through CP. So while Montreal are the main negotiators with CP for that extension, Côte Saint-Luc is able to be at the table for those discussions. We will be part of those discussions.
Thank you. The next question from Harold is about the noise bylaws. First, are these noise bylaws included in the either the master plan planning process or the zoning bylaws? Is it something that's connected to that or not? Nadia, I'll throw that at you.
Yeah, normally noise restrictions are in a separate bylaw that are specific to noise constraints or different types of constraints. So it's not something that necessarily appears in the master plan, aside from certain things like noise levels related to like rail yards or the airport. But as far as like equipment on a site, I'll let Tanya maybe add because she knows her bylaws for Côte Saint-Luc, but normally there's a separate bylaw for this.
Tanya, is there any intention of the City of Côte Saint-Luc revising their noise bylaws?
So we don't, it's either in one of a few bylaws. So it's in construction, like what HVAC systems you can have at what level. It's in zoning for the distance of machine to property line, and it is in nuisance for, I want to say, other noise issues. So it's not in master plan, but there is a piece in zoning, which is just the distance, not so much the decibel levels. That would be in construction.
Thank you. David mentions the importance of certain services like grocery stores, pharmacies, and smaller shops, restaurants, etc., in the shopping malls. And so, is there any requirements to keep these type of stores in future developments on these shopping mall sites?
It's a requirement. We absolutely want them to have the commercial part, because without service de proximité, well, there is no proximité, right? So we must have these services.
Thank you. Next question. Since we already know that a huge project was planned to be built on Westminster, is the plan really going to be flexible? And is their decision-making inclusive, or is this process just appearance? Tanya, on this one. So about the project on Westminster, is this part of this plan, or is it a separate process?
So if they are referring to the one at the end of Westminster, which is what I think they're referring to, that project would be its own zoning change process. It wouldn't be part of the master plan, that one. It would go through the regular zoning change process.
Okay. So that's not part of the master planning process, the existing master planning process. It follows its own process. How do you anticipate dealing with people who want car dependency and value space over sustainability? So you said earlier that not necessarily everybody will agree on the different aspects. So what about those who really like Côte Saint-Luc for that reason, because it's, that's the way they like to live? How are you going to deal with those people? Will you prevent them from having cars?
We can, first of all, Côte Saint-Luc residents love their cars, we know, right? And certainly there's no other way to get around. We're not eliminating roads. So the roads will still be there. Will they be added to? Will there be bike lanes in those roads? Will roads be narrowed in some areas? Probably, but we're not eliminating roads. We do know people love their cars. The one thing that we would have Côte Saint-Luc residents do is to analyze, do I need this mode for this trip? is this one I could walk? Is this one I could bike? Is this one the public transit, if it's super rapid and easy, I could use? So it's the constancy and consistency of car use that would be ideal for people to sort of analyze their own habits, but we're not eliminating roads. So if you have a car, you can still drive it.
So basically the idea, I understand, is to offer options for people to actually use active mobility, not to prevent people from having cars. Thank you. So will there be transparency in this process? Will we know what people want or agree? Will all this be documented? Will the information be available? Let's go with Elizabeth on this. I haven't asked you any question tonight.
Thank you so much. I was hoping you would ask me this one. So the answer to the first question, will there be transparency? Yes, c'est un processus très transparent. Will we know what most people want to agree with, or will the city keep the data concealed and do what it wants in the end? The answer to the second question is no. So throughout the process, as I said, we're gathering all this information, and then at the very end, we'll produce a report. We call it a what we heard report, that will then be publicly available. So you'll be able to see not only what people said, but how it was heard, what we heard report. And as well, like you'll be able to see, for example, since this meeting is being posted online, even people who weren't able to come to the meeting will be able to hear what questions people were asking, what answers were given as well. So yeah.
Tanya, would you like to add something to this about the transparency of the process?
Well, I mean, you're producing a report with what everyone said, right? So after that, we'll have the draft master plan. It will be subject to public scrutiny, and then it will pass or it will not pass. But then at that point, I mean, it will be evident what we have retained or not retained, because the other document will be there to compare and contrast.
Thank you. The next question or comment is about wildlife in Côte Saint-Luc. And I think we're talking about skunks and raccoons and this kind of wildlife. Joseph is mentioning that there is more wildlife roaming in the street, especially late in the evening, since we have composting. Is there any consideration for that in the planning process, or is it something that's dealt with different types of tools? Tanya.
So the only wildlife that is considered in master plan is sort of increasing biodiversity. So not exactly this question. This issue is not one that is dealt with in an urban planning context at all. If we have issues with skunks, I mean, the city can't even get them out of Côte Saint-Luc. We don't even have that capacity. So we want people to keep their compost clean, but it's not zoning that does that.
Thank you. The next comment, because another question, is from Lion Rich, who says that there is endless layers of review and approval by multiple levels of bureaucracy. So I think he's talking about the efficiency of the adoption process for new projects. How can this process remove the paralysis caused by analysis and get the simple accessibility we need to get in and out of Côte Saint-Luc resolved today? So I guess it's a bit about the Cavendish extension or other process. Can we make these processes leaner, faster, quicker? Tanya. Is there any way to go around the typical bureaucracy that would increase the efficiency of the adoption or authorization process for projects, or that would fast track some initiatives?
Well, from a planning point of view, we are legally obliged to go through every layer, PMAD to SHEMA to master plan, right? So there's literally nothing we can do about that. It is the law. In terms of review of, like, I don't know if they mean review of projects or review of the master plan.
Let's do both.
We're not, I mean, we don't have a rapid way to do it. It has to have the time, right? So if we're having a consultant We have to do proper consultations. That takes time. We have to have a professional draft the master plan. That also takes time. The public needs the time to scrutinize the master plan. That takes time. We have to make the agglomeration has to approve what's called a concordance to make sure that we conform. That also takes time. None of those steps we can really cut, much as it takes time. But like I said, it's a slow process, urban development.
Thank you. Harry wants a yes or no answer to this question about the zoning change approval. Is it a citywide or district level approval? Tanya.
I
So
believe I've already answered it. It's
yes, but I think citywide.
Yeah.
So yes, citywide. So that's the clear answer, Harry. Did you describe what ideas are for the 3 malls earlier in this meeting? This person came a little bit late. So actually, are there any specific ideas right now other than what the vision you've been presenting, Tanya, for these malls? Can you just repeat very quickly what are the main ideas for these 3 malls?
Well, we want them to be mixed, as I said. We want them to be sustainable. We want them to be age-friendly. We want them to be relatively dense and have mobility attached to them, so to be TODs. We want them to have, I want to say, active public spaces where people can gather and enjoy each other's company. We want them to be, I want to say, comfortable. And have the service, like the mixed use part is the having commercial and office and residential all mixed up.
Excellent. So it's not more specific than that at this stage. Thank you. There's a bit of mix of question and discussion between participants here, so it's getting harder to identify questions. Isabelle Letourneau, on her question regarding green roof, she was mentioning, I think that's what you understood, Tanya, that it's not about the color, but about the fact that it's ecological green roof. So is your answer still the same? It's not a question of color, white or green. It's really a question of green roof, meaning toiture végétalisée, to be clear in French. Is this what you meant by green roof?
We don't have a specific obligation to have a green roof végétalisé with, les fleurs sauvages or whatever it is on the roof, mais c'est sûr que si c'est quelque chose, disons, le public demande les toits verts, c'est sûr que c'est quelque chose qu'on va mettre en considération pour le changement de zonage pour n'importe quel promoteur qui veut construire une bâtisse.
Très bien. Et on comprend que c'est effectivement un toit écologique là, et non pas un toit peinturé en vert. Rhonda is asking, is any part of the hippodrome in Côte Saint-Luc, and if so, is it part of the master plan and timetable? So Tanya, is there any part of the hippodrome that's inside the limits of Côte Saint-Luc? No.
Not a drop. I mean, we have to, they are part of what is the Namur de la Savane area. They're immediately to the north of Décary Square. So we are certainly in dialogue with the borough of Côte-des-Neiges NDG, because we don't want to have, they have to go together in some way. We want to connect them in some way. So, but we have zero, that we've already made a brief about this to them, what Côte Saint-Luc would like or thinks, but we have no say, not like that.
Thank you. Susana Guerriero is asking, is the master plan will include any details of the future changes to the hydro substation? Tanya?
Zero.
Thank you.
They're separate.
Separate things. So I don't see any more questions. Maybe I'll let a few minutes before actually closing. So just as a reminder, in terms of the next steps, so we've mentioned that there is a consultation process that will take place in the next few months. Key dates, the first one is September 13. September 13 is our second public information session. This one will be specifically on the 3 shopping mall sites. As Elizabeth mentioned earlier, You will have, again, a presentation by the city. You will also have the developers who will be presenting what their ideas. So that will be a very interesting moment for those who are want to have more details about these shopping malls and the future of them. And so I really encourage you to come to this meeting. At September 13 also, you will be receiving or have the possibility to answer a survey. So that will be a first way for you to give some feedback on some of the information we've given you and what your aspiration, your needs, or whatever you think should be in this master plan. There will be an open house on September 18. This open house is an opportunity for you to talk directly to first those who are here, but many more professionals about the master plan, the shopping malls, and everything that we've discussed today. So all of these will be announced on the Engage webpage. Later after that, you will be able to, that will give you more detail at that time, to participate in the public hearing, to write a brief, present it to a panel. So these are the key dates. And while I was saying that, a few more questions were asked. So let's see. Beside the 3 shopping centers, in increasing density, are there other mechanisms envisioned to increase density? So will there be an increase of density in other areas and other ways of increasing density other than the redevelopment of the shopping malls, Tanya?
Sure, there could be, for sure. If you know, I mean, we're looking at different housing types too. So if there is, and this is, it's all sort of open, there's co-housing, there's live work, there's what is called middle housing, missing middle housing, where it's let's say low rise or townhouses, or like it really depends on the area, but there's a whole lot of housing types that are denser than, let's say, a single family dwelling, but nowhere near, you know, a tower. So
will this be discussed in the planning process?
Oh, for sure.
In the consultation process, yes.
Yeah.
Nadia, other things that city are doing to increase density, beside what Tanya has mentioned?
Yeah, I think by looking at different housing types, because density is not necessarily just a question of height. You can have very high density, like in the plateau, without necessarily having towers. So it's really, it comes down from the master plan, where there's density thresholds in terms of FAR, so floor area ratio, which is the ratio between the floor area of a building and the area of a site. And then that goes down into the zoning bylaw. So they'll be able to target specific areas, specific streets, specific sites where the goal is to increase density. So the requirement will actually be to go higher than what the existing situation is.
Thank you. Mike Cohen is asking if the meeting on September 13 will be virtual. Yes, it will. The open house will be in person in front of the City Hall. So that will be an opportunity to meet in person. But the next meeting, the public information session on September 13, will be virtual. Jason is asking if there is no connection here to the new synagogue, that they did not have room on Mackerel. So I'm not too sure if I get that question. Maybe Tanya, you will be able to understand more.
I'm trying to see that question.
Jason Bowen. Is there no connection here to the new synagogue that they did not have room for on Mackerel? Guess Mackerel is a street.
Yes, Mackerel is the street. They're referring to, I want to say, a consultation for a synagogue that we had the consultation, the public responded, the project was put on hold for the moment. There's no plan at this time to include anything of that project in this master plan, but I couldn't say it would never happen. It's just, there isn't one at this time.
There's no project being submitted to the city. Is this right?
There was a project submitted.
Okay.
But that incarnation of a project did not work.
Did not work. Thank you. Is Cavendish Boulevard will be extended to the north in the next 3 years? This is a question from Moshe. The next 3 years.
No, I wish,
No.
but no. Even if all our dreams come true and Montreal follows through, it will take 2 years alone just for it to go through the BAP process, and then studies and studies and studies. And so, I mean, I wouldn't bank on it for a solid 7, 8 years even. But 2, no, definitely no, or 3.
Thank you. One last question, and after that we'll conclude. A question from Joseph Catalano. He's asking if any people who are making this master plan live in Côte Saint-Luc. 2 questions. First, the first, who's going to make that master plan first? And drafting it, because yeah, that's the question. The conception of the master plan. Who are you going?
Hiring consultants to do that.
Okay. Any of them, is it a requirement to live in Côte Saint-Luc?
No, but our urban planning coordinator who would be working with them is in fact a resident, if that matters.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to take one last question, and after that we'll go to we'll conclude with Dida Berku, who's going to make closing works. How can you increase density beside redevelopment of the shopping center if Côte Saint-Luc has no more undeveloped land? So would you buy private houses, demolish them, and build larger building instead? So are you planning to, if, you know, beside the redevelopment of the shopping center, does densification entails the demolition of the existing buildings to build bigger buildings? That's the question from Michael. Tanya.
It could. I mean, there's adding floors to houses and buildings. You could, in theory, yes.
But is this an intention from the city to say, well, we're going to, you know, densify this residential area which already exists and has the existing houses? So well, is there a plan to replace existing buildings in residential areas? That's my understanding of the question of Michael.
So we're looking at mainly the big sites, but if you look at what is the housing zoning potential for the like let's say District 5, which is very, I mean, single family dwellings or semi-detached. Right now in the zoning, they're allowed to go to 2 floors. It's already there. They just are 1 floor, let's say. So there's still I want to say a potential for those homes to grow even in the current zoning. So it's, are we going to throw a tower in, let's say, you know, on Palmer? Very unlikely, but there's still room for people to densify even now.
So Said is asking, can Côte Saint-Luc use a tax incentive to encourage single family homes to be renovated and transform them into multi-family units? Is this something that the city could consider, transformation of single family homes into multi-unit family buildings, residential buildings?
If this is something that residents are asking for, it will be considered like everything else residents would be asking for. There's no reason not to consider it.
Thank you. So as you've seen, there's lots of subjects, lots of questions, lots of comments, lots of ideas. This is the idea of this consultation process, is for you to be able to first be informed of what is a master plan. This is what we've tried to do tonight. What are the intentions, or what is the vision of the city? The next step will be for you to actually present your opinions, your ideas, your intentions, your concerns through the various participative activities that we have shown you today. So on that note, I will first thank you very much for participating in such a large number, and I will ask Dida Berku to make closing remarks. Dida. Microphone, I think your microphone is closed.
Bonsoir, bonsoir Jacques. Bonsoir tout le monde. Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, you can see me. I can't see myself, unfortunately, but that's fine. Can you see me clearly? That's fine. Okay. Alors, bonsoir, good evening. On behalf of the Mayor and Council, first of all, I would like to thank all the Côte Saint-Luc residents for participating in tonight's first information session. And I would also like to thank the panelists, Jacques and Tanya and Nadia and Elizabeth, for animating and leading this session so successfully. Je veux remercier tous les citoyens de Côte Saint-Luc pour avoir participé ce soir à la première séance d'information sur le plan d'aménagement, et je voudrais ajouter quelques petits commentaires. I listened very carefully to the residents and their questions, and here are two ideas that I have for the residents over the next 2 months, where June, July, August, we're going to be 2-3 months, we're going to be traveling. We haven't had a good opportunity to travel over the past 2 years. So as we travel across the countries, wherever you may go in your travels, look and learn what improvements you can see that would be able to adapt to Côte Saint-Luc. And as we have also heard, the city does have a vision based on sustainable, livable, connected city through increased mobility and mixed use development. We do have that vision, yes. But based on your questions, we can see that many residents' goals and issues are aligned with the city vision. However, there are many questions and issues that were raised, which will definitely trigger more information sessions and more reflection on the part of the city and a part of those who are working on the master plan. So I was very inspired by all the questions that we heard tonight. I want to invite all the residents to follow the process, to continue to participate as you have done this evening. There were over 80 participants this evening. That's a very good turnout. And in closing, again, I want to thank Jacques, Tanya, Nadia, and Elizabeth for leading the session. On behalf of Mayor and Council, we're looking forward to driving this project to completion. Ensemble, nous allons développer la vision avec les citoyens et les promoteurs de la ville. Et je suis très confiante. I'm very, very confident that this is going to be a very successful process. So on that note, I wish you all good night. Merci. Bonsoir.